Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Darrell Steinberg, the Mayor of Sacramento. I'm here in my office, proudly wearing my Home is Sacramento t-shirt. I want to welcome all of you and thank you for spending a few minutes with us today. The purpose of our forum, if you will, is to provide detailed information about how you as restaurateurs can take advantage of an incredible new opportunity to not only keep your business going, but to help a lot of people in need. From the very beginning of this crisis, Sacramento has understood the connection between what's happening to our small businesses and restaurants because of the stay-at-home order, but also the need to feed so many people, families whose parents have lost jobs, seniors who are shut in and cannot get out. And so while we may not have been the only ones to start this, we are certainly among the first. It was Patrick Mulvaney, who's with us here today, always leading. Thank you, Patrick. It was Oliver at Camden. It was Brad Checky at Cannon. It was Danette Williams at Laura and the Woodlake Tavern. And it was Craig at Ben Chayoki, who all had this idea to use their restaurants to do what they do so well, make good, healthy food and distribute it to people in need. The City of Sacramento was able to help kick this off with our community development block grant funds, in addition to money from our Justice for Neighbors program, $200,000, and our creative entrepreneurs were off to the races, feeding some 1,200 seniors over the last month or so. Food insecurity has emerged as among the most significant consequences of the coronavirus. It shouldn't be surprising, but there are a lot of people who are really hurting and in need of what many of us take for granted. And so we have the bones of a program here. And now, because of our great governor of the state of California, Gavin Newsom, and his prodding and pushing with the federal government, Governor announced yesterday that he wants to expand this concept statewide, with the federal government through the Federal Emergency Management Agency, FEMA, paying the lion's share of reimbursing the restaurants for the cost of the meal, and then leave it to the local governments throughout the state to find a way to distribute as many of those meals as possible. We identify thousands of seniors who could benefit from this program, and as a city, we intend to be among the first to implement it and to implement it well. And I just want to add one other thing before I turn it over to my senior policy advisor, who's done such a terrific job on this, Julia Burrows, along with Zach Yates, my other senior policy advisor, who's also done a great job. One of the things I just want to say is that a criticism, not of this program, but of aid in general in the first month of the coronavirus, whether it's the federal PPP, whether it's the city's first $1 million allocation of assistance to people and families, is that too many of the small businesses in our diverse neighborhoods of Sacramento, our communities of color, have not gotten as much help or assistance in a variety of areas as they need. And so I want to make sure that as we roll this out over the next days and the next week, that we ensure that we are reaching deep into our restaurant communities in all of our neighborhoods, so that this is a direct benefit to everyone, but that we are being intentional and deliberate about getting out into our neighborhoods here, so that those small businesses also have a better chance of making it through this difficult period of time. So this is an exciting day, an exciting idea, more than an idea, a chance to now just do something very significant in our community. I thank you again for joining. I want to turn it over to Julia to take you through the details of exactly how this works.
Thank you very much, Mayor, and thank you to everyone who's joining us today. Thank you, Patrick and Brad. We wanted to start with the program overview as we know it. The governor announced this just literally 24 hours ago at his noon press conference on Friday. And so we've taken the key details out of his announcement, and we've added some of our own details to announce today. And we know there are a number of restaurants online right now, and then we intend to post this YouTube video for other restaurants that might be interested in participating in the program. So there is a document available from the Office of Emergency Services, and that's available on the mayor's engagesac.org website. And next slide, Andrew. To start the program overview, really the governor's goal is to have restaurants provide healthy meals to seniors. And a key part that's not mentioned when you look at the document is that this also means local farms, because chefs like Patrick and Brad procure what they serve from farms. So because we are the farm to fork capital, as the mayor said, we should be the pioneers because we have the supply chain of local farms, the restaurants cook the healthy meals, and we're going to keep our seniors healthy. The program is actually effective immediately, which is why less than 24 hours since all of this became public, the mayor is hosting this YouTube video, and it will run through May 10th with possibilities for an extension. The definition of seniors in the program are those that are 65 and older. There is an income requirement, but they've been very generous with that. It's 600% of poverty or below. And for a single person, that's about $75,000. And for a household of two, it's about $100,000. So we know we'll be able to qualify many seniors based on those income requirements. Or if it's a high-risk individual that's currently suffering from COVID and trying to recuperate at home or other medical issues. It is a person who lives alone or with one other individual. So if there's a caregiver in the home who's cooking meals, they are not qualified. They don't need to live in an apartment complex. They can live at a single family home. And we're just asking that they self-certify that they need help to isolate and stay at home, as the governor keeps saying, stay home, stay safe, and that it would really, really assist them in having home delivery of meals. So the city is working with multiple agencies to identify that client list as soon as possible. In fact, Friday at 5 o'clock, we had wonderful collaboration from the Agency on Aging, AARP, we had the county folks, we had Meals on Wheels, all of those agencies that are involved, and we are in rapid fire trying to develop the client list. Next slide, Andrew. So meal requirements. There are nutritional requirements outlined in the guidelines. We can serve, and FEMA will reimburse along with the state and a small local match 3 meals per day. So breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And they have to be low in sodium, and it can't be Kool-Aid or sugary drinks. There's requirements for that. For lunch and dinner, another benefit to our farms, fresh fruit or vegetables on each dish. So we know that they'll have some healthy side dishes along with whatever's prepared by the restaurant. Next slide. So for restaurant selection, the criteria that the state and FEMA has given us is on this list. First, locally determined. That's the purpose of this YouTube video, is that we will work together to determine the restaurants. This isn't something prescribed by FEMA or the state of California. The restaurants must meet the volume. That means they can produce enough if they sign a contract to deliver those meals to the seniors. They have to meet the nutritional standards we just talked about. They added a provision from the draft requirements to source locally. And so we'll work with the restaurants to kind of monitor that. And then they also need to meet cultural needs. And we know that Sacramento is one of the most diverse cities in the country, and we have lots of different tastes. And we have some vegetarians, and we have some folks who are allergic to things. So we need to make sure we're monitoring that when we sign up our seniors. If the senior is currently, actually this is on the restaurant side, the restaurant cannot be currently participating in a state or federal meal service program. The restaurant services that the mayor mentioned are local programs. So if these restaurants have already been delivering locally, that does not disqualify the restaurant, because those are not state or federal meal service programs. And the restaurants, in our case, the city will administer this program. That allows us to be nimble and get this out right away. The restaurant will contract with the city itself for a fixed order of meals. So that's what we know from the state guidelines. The city goals, and these are in progress and being developed, and we're looking for input from mayor, from the council members, from the neighborhoods. We would like to see, as the mayor started in his initial comments, geographic diversity, diversity in the size of businesses, diversity in the type of food, and for delivery purposes of perishables, proximity of restaurant to the senior served, so that you're actually working with your neighborhood restaurants. We will take that into a factor in selection of the restaurants. And then we are still developing, so this is a great placeholder, in consultation with the city attorney and other advisors, how we will choose the restaurants to be contracted with. Next slide. And before I talk about the next steps, I did want to talk about the economic opportunity for this, and I know the mayor can speak to this as well. The amounts that were allocated by FEMA, it's a 75% match from FEMA, 19% match from the state. It's a 6% match from the local government. So one of the first things we do is we have to have the council allocate or approve the local match.
Yeah, let me, if I might on that, Julia.
Go ahead.
Yeah, no, thank you. Yeah, this is, we're gonna have to get to the city council quickly, and we're gonna have to obviously have an estimated cost. And as you know, the city did receive an $89 million check this week as part of the federal stimulus. I think this is a totally appropriate way to spend some of that money, but we're gonna have to really refine our cost estimates. And, you know, we're going to have to be financially prudent as we are aggressive, you know, the usual, to make sure that we're doing this in the right way. So we're working on that today with the city manager and with the city council.
Mm-hmm. So there's no cap on the total program. And as we said, we're trying to identify the seniors. What the state did provide is a meal allotment, and it's actually a very generous allotment, $16 for breakfast, up to $17 for lunch, and $28 for dinner. And then they'll pay some delivery costs as well out of the funding. So it's a balance between how many seniors we have, how many restaurants we'll have, and the amount that the city is available to put in for local match. So all those numbers are being assembled based on seniors who qualify and the state guidelines on investment. From the advice that Patrick and Brad are going to give us, from the questions that come in on the YouTube chat today, we're going to prepare frequently asked questions, and we're going to consult with the program directors at the Office of Emergency Service and the governor's office, and we will publish those frequently asked questions that come out of this. And we anticipate that this will also be phased, because we're trying to identify as many seniors as we can and get this program started with council authorization. So we'll identify the seniors, we'll set city criteria, determine the qualified restaurants, and the city vendor process, which is pretty simple. It's a certificate of insurance and a valid business license. And do that first phase, and then add more seniors. And we are anticipating a timeline extension by the state beyond May 10th. They have made that clear to us that they anticipate these stay-at-home, especially for a vulnerable over 65 population, will extend past May 10th. And so we are anticipating an extension to the program. And so that's what we know right now. And I wanted to turn it back to the mayor, and just, we are so grateful for this economic opportunity. And we look forward to answering any questions. Please send them our way anytime, and to working with you as we roll out the program. So thank you for this opportunity, Mayor.
Thank you for laying out the detail, Julia. And, you know, like everything else in this period, it's, you know, the cliche, we're flying the plane as we build it.
Yes.
And so this probably will be done with some phasing, although we want to ramp it up as rapidly as possible. I want to turn it over to the two of the pioneers here, Patrick Mulvaney and Brad Checky, who, you know, again, started a version of this and been doing this from the very beginning of the crisis. I want to both thank you and turn it over to you for your comments and practical advice about how someone who has not participated in this would get started.
Yeah, it's not a complicated program as much as it is kind of figuring out logistics. A lot of us restaurants are used to a certain kind of service. This is different, and so in writing the SOPs for the program, we were very careful to kind of outline the distribution format, right? From funding to sourcing, obviously working with local farms the best we can. Having people within the supply chain with donations is always a plus, but having this program be sustainable came from bulk buying and really driving the costs to a manageable place so that we could effectively feed as many people as possible. And then as far as the meals go, the size of our restaurants varies, and what people are capable of doing definitely changes. But one of the biggest pieces of advice I know when we all started doing this, we're like, we're going to save the world. We're going to do 300 boxes, 400 boxes a day, and 50 boxes is a good place to start. So, I know that Patrick's grown his program quite a bit. Our program has also grown quite a bit at Canon, and we've developed a system for packaging and distribution that makes a lot of sense. The struggles we are running into right now, as the supply chain, starts, I think, through its first or second phase of troubles, is the packaging part of it. So finding the appropriate packaging, especially for a program of this scale and size, is going to be one of our biggest hurdles. But it's something that we've already started down that chain, and Patrick can speak a little bit more to that. And then it's about safety. We have to make sure as restaurants that we're still, operating to the way that our county health department has required of us, as far as, food temperature danger zones and food safety practices, so that as these meals go out into the community, that we're not getting anybody sick. And so, we're going to have a kind of grassroots distribution network that may or may not include refrigerated trucks, but we'll have to be conscious of time in that moment to make sure that these meals are getting delivered cold, or in some cases maybe even hot to the end user.
So, Julia, before I turn it over to Patrick, this is a good opportunity to talk about transportation. How have we arranged transportation during the first non-FEMA phase of this project?
So we've had a couple of partners. The most of the work has been done by paratransit, which has extra capacity because their ridership has plummeted with the stay-at-home orders for the senior population. And they have been just wonderful in delivering. They will step up as much as possible. But to the point on the perishable food, we will be looking for other options. That could be other rideshare companies. We know there's other capacity from entities like the United Cerebral Palsy that also had done rides and now has extra capacity. We will do our best to work with existing partners, paratransit, UCP, SAC-RT, so that we have very low delivery costs, but we may need to do some rental of refrigerated cars if that is the case in some of these routes.
Okay, Patrick?
Yeah, I think, well, Your Honor, I think that one of the great things is that in the people you have on this call, that we understand, just like Brad said, food safety, right? And that it's important. And in doing, as Brad said, 50 is a good number to start. 100 will not be insurmountable for anybody on this phone call after a week. 200, you have to have your stuff together. And then we find that when we get up to that 300-400, that's just crazy. But because it's so small, the challenge of food safety and the 40-140 lessens itself, because the food will be pretty distributed here, and that'll be show up in the SOPs where we cook the day before and refrigerate, so that everything is at or under 40 degrees before it leaves our door, meaning that the clock starts ticking. I think it is a pretty valuable program, certainly been pretty good. And it's also important to remember that you can do this with social distancing. It's pretty easy. We have a lot of space, so we have some people cooking next door and preparing, and we have a big stick with a chicken on the end of it that is 6 feet away. I know Mayor and Julia may not be used to this, but in restaurants, the boys like to grab ass and the girls want to chit chat. But we, inside of a week, we really gotten everyone to be conscious of those things and staying 6 feet away, having masks. We have temperature check-ins on the way in, just as a way to make sure that no one's sick, right? The advice from the county at this point is temperature guys are really good. Washing your hands, washing your hands, washing your hands. We already do it. We do it more than we usually do in the restaurant, but that's the important piece. In the hopes that no one gets sick. And if anyone is symptomatic, send them home right away. Make sure they don't stay at work. If there's someone else who's working for you, who's living with that person needs to go too. But the rest of the other people should just be monitoring for symptoms as you're moving forward.
That's great. Okay. Thank you both. So we have questions coming in, I assume.
Yeah, and then Mayor, before you get to questions, I just want to say that the impetus for this was how we put, empty restaurants and antsy cooks back to work, but also it turns out to how do we make sure that we're supporting the farms that are surrounding us, and then even more in talking with Karen Ross, Secretary of Food and Agriculture, and other folks. One of the challenges as the economy was limited was making sure that the pipelines of the economy kept flowing. And while this won't make everybody run full bore, it will be kind of like a cabin up in the Sierras where you let the faucet drip a little so that your pipelines don't freeze. So when we do open up, we're that much more ready to go.
Yeah, the cash flow, restaurants being a cash flow business, if a restaurant has been closed, their accounts, their utilities, things like that, their employees, all that that flow has been shut off. And, having this be a rolling start for reopening also really helps with the financials of a reopening, and allowing to get people back to work, getting their restaurants clean, getting their machinery all up and working, their equipment going, their vendor debt starting to get taken care of from, Valentine's Day. Remember when we were all 30 days, that was 30 days after Valentine's Day, our busiest week of the year, or one of them, was 30 days, before this happened. So there is a lot of that kind of stuff, the way that the cash flow of restaurants works. This is going to help, get that rolling start moving.
I think that's a really important point because, what everybody worries about, obviously, is even with all of this assistance and this great collaboration, that when this period of time is over, whenever it's over, that it's going to be hard for businesses then to be able to pay the debts that they've incurred along the way. But what you're saying, Brad, is that this actually will help not just the bottom line in the short term, but will also better prepare small businesses, restaurants financially to be able to actually resume once we can really resume.
Right. Yeah, because part of our program, allocates a certain amount of money for food costs, right? So that vendor payment is guaranteed within the financials of the program. And in a situation like restaurants are in, that money may not be going to pay for the carrot that we're feeding to our SHRA elderly people. It may be going to pay for the caviar that we bought for Valentine's Day. But when in fact, as that business starts to roll and as those vendor, accounts start to move forward, the restaurants are able to procure more, and along the way, like we've had some very generous donations along the way as well. And, those things all go a huge, distance with helping the restaurant community stay afloat. And more importantly, really, I think I can't speak for Patrick, but we have been able to keep quite a bit of our kitchen staff at the bare minimum working through this entire process. So, a lot of them I know are off unemployment now, and they're working. So that also kind of lightens the load on that end too.
And so it's the point of bringing us, if this is not a handout where we get to sit home and eat bonbons, but a way to revive the economy and rebuild Sacramento, if you will, while accomplishing this need that we have to make sure that our elders are safe, fed, and remain socially connected.
Mm-hmm. That's a great point, Patrick. And Mayor, I wanted to give one more detail on the vendor payments. Our understanding is that FEMA may be giving us a 50% upfront once we go into the program, which is amazing. That means 10 days, not the usual 60 to 90 days. And so, that will allow us to help with the procurement of the supply to cook the food. And we do have a couple of questions, Mayor. First one is a detailed one. How does a restaurant apply? And they should go to your engagesac.org website, and there is a form posted there, along with this story that Mary Lynn Belinga, your communications director, posted. And they should fill out that form there. Perhaps another one that you can address, Mayor, is a question about a plan to source from minority-owned restaurants, the goal in diversity.
Right. So, as we said earlier, this is going to require a city council approval in large part because it's going to require a small, but depending on how big we grow, potentially significant city financial match. And this city has been committed, is committed now, and will forever be committed to what we call inclusive economic development. Our goal as a city is to grow in the way we have grown so remarkably over the last 5 to 10 years, but to do so in a way that is inclusive of all of our neighborhoods, especially the neighborhoods that have been traditionally disadvantaged. It's a consistent mantra. It is a consistent theme. It is an ongoing commitment. So here we have now an opportunity to practice that principle in a very real way with mostly federal and state help. And so we're going to talk about the guidelines here. Should we allocate a percentage of our funding to businesses, restaurants in particular zip codes, if not by volume of food, by the number of restaurants that are allowed to participate? If it's 15,000 seniors, is there going to be, are we going to have to say no to some restaurateurs who want to participate? All of these things will be experienced in real time, but we must write guidelines that are not bureaucratic, that aren't restrictive, but just ensure that this investment gets out to all of our neighborhoods of Sacramento. And how we do that, we will be discussing over the next several days.
Yes, thank you. There's another question on how we are determining the seniors. And we are partnering with agencies, including Meals on Wheels and the Food Bank Senior Meal Delivery Program, because if they are receiving those services already, they are not eligible for this program. We have every list imaginable of seniors to contact. We're working with all 8 council districts, every property manager of Mutual Housing, St. Anton Housing, all of our affordable housing developers. We'll work with SHRA, we'll work with neighborhood associations. And we really encourage, as the governor said, people to call 211 right now if they want to sign up as a senior or they want to refer a senior. And we will have a more formal process to register for senior registration, but we are working with every agency that already serves seniors to have that comprehensive list. Another question was also on delivery, and the restaurant is asking if they will be able to do their own delivery. The requirements within the guidelines are that they have to be background checked, which is why we were referring to paratransit, SAC-RT, because their drivers are all background checked already. So we can get into more detail on that once we choose the restaurants. We would prefer that you cook and that we have a separate delivery company take care of that. And Brad has a comment on that as well.
Yeah, and just remember that it's important for that separation too, right? That from a social distancing perspective, that these restaurants are not exposing being exposed to the end user, that distribution chain in the middle helps keep that distance, right? And it helps to keep our restaurants working because our staff is not exposed to potentially, unvetted end users. And so having that distribution network and having SOPs in place for how those things get done is important for, just the safety of your employees.
Mm-hmm. And that's a great point, is just having that disconnection so that we're not transmitting anymore in the disease, and having trained drivers who know that. So that's our focus, on working on those details. And we have another question. Let's see, on dates of the program. Again, it's effective immediately, which is why the mayor is working on Saturday, as he always does, but hosting this today so that we can get as much information out as possible. It currently goes through May 10th, and we hope that it will be extended. And again, go to engagesac.org. We will have more information coming up. Once you register there, we have you in the queue, and we'll keep working on the criteria and be in touch with you as soon as possible.
And we're going to get out a frequently asked questions document. And then, of course, Julia, you and our team will be available to answer specific questions that aren't covered by the so-called FAQ. So,
exactly. Mm-hmm. Yes. And I think there's specific questions that I will follow up from restaurants that have given some comments one-on-one.
This is
and I think the mayor may be frozen for just a second. Are you back with us?
I'm back.
All right. There you are.
Are we ready to wrap this up?
Yes.
Okay. Again, thank you to Patrick and Brad. Thank you, Julia. Thank you to my team. Thank you to the city. This is the Sacramento spirit again in action. And it's the California spirit. And it is another of many examples of how our community is rising to the occasion, not just during the coronavirus, but always. And so we thank you for your patience, because, no doubt there'll be a few hiccups along the way here, but we're going to get this right. And we're going to make sure that, again, if you don't think, we would never be able to participate in this, or, we're too small, or this is too hard, please get in touch with us. Please apply, because we want you to be part of this program. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it.
Thank you.